Hello and welcome to Everyday People. My name is Vaibhav. Thank you so much for clicking on this video. The guest I have today is called Zany Martian, and they will introduce themselves as all guests do on the show. But I just wanted to drop a note at the beginning that I asked guests if they are comfortable on camera or not, and they can switch off their video. So our guest today has switched off their video. You'll be able to see my face, but not theirs. Thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy this interview. Hello and welcome to Everyday People. That's Zany Martian, otherwise known as Neha. Hi Neha, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm wonderful. Thank you so much for asking. I'll start off the interview with my standard first question. Who are you? What do you do? And what's your current side project?
I am Neha. I go by that Zany Martian, and I am a freelance illustrator based in Bangalore. And currently, I'm working on a product. Something that people would definitely be excited by, but it's also something that would, get them to be motivated about what they're doing themselves. Mm-hmm. And that's all I'll have to say about that.
All right. So I do want to ask you, people receive the word side project differently. Some people receive it as hobbies, something that they do to get away from work. And some people receive it as a hustle that they're doing outside of work to make more money. How do you receive it? Do you receive it as a hobby or as a hustle?
Well, it's definitely not a hobby because it's very much intrinsic to what I do as an illustrator. So everything that I do sideways is always it's kind of meanders through the main hustle, which is illustrations and digital art. Mm-hmm. So I take it quite seriously, actually.
All right. So how did you get into illustration as your career of choice?
Well, I definitely wasn't the usual go to art school kind of a person. Although I was a very artsy kid, throughout my education or just in a friend group growing up, I was known as the artsy kid, So I guess somewhere at the back of my head, I kind of have an inkling art would be something that I'd probably do something but not as a career. So I think it was during the pandemic, and I was working as, in my usual 9-to-5 corporate job. And just like everybody else, I've had it with it. And it's just not something that was conducive, not just to my mental health, but it's also to, my, just everything that trickles down to finances or the way you live, everything else, and because I already had a certain support following, and also a lot of people asking me if I do anything with my artworks at all, it kind of gave me a boost to take it up as a main gig. So,
that's wonderful.
Thank you.
So if you could tell me a little bit about your corporate experience, how long were you working a 9-to-5 and what was that like for you? Obviously, you don't have to get into specifics if you don't want to. You don't have to name companies. But the reason I asked this question is just because I'm trying to understand where that sits in your psyche and how that was as an experience for you. Because it varies for other people, it varies for different people.
For sure. So I worked about 5 to 6 years as a copywriter and an account executive, different jobs around the same thing, copywriting, content writing, account executive for various companies, from event management to advertising to PR. So I've kind of had an extensive, dip in my toes with industries across the board, sort of, and it's just, although it was kind of funny because when I first started off with a corporate job, I started corporate right out of the bat, right out of college, right after my convocations got started. The next day I started with a job.
Right.
And so I didn't really have the, how some people have I'm going to take a year off and see what fits me. I did not have the privilege to do that. Mm-hmm. So I had to start off with a job right at the outset. Mm-hmm. And when I first started off, everyone who even remotely knew me was like, are you sure this is for you? Because you seem just way too creative to be going down the corporate line. And I should have taken that as an indication, because what was coming for the next 6 years was just very belligerent and traumatic experience. It's just, when I say traumatic, yeah, sure, some of my bosses were actually incompetent, okay? But then some of them were really, really nice. And my colleagues were really nice, and they formed a lifelong friendship with. I found, framed a lifelong friendship with them. But then again, when it comes down to actually doing the work, it's not something that was. I wasn't meant to do it. It wasn't. There's no growth happening.
Right.
There's jobs that literally anybody can do, and it was one of those quote unquote donkey work kind of a thing. Like, you wouldn't need your mental capacity, you wouldn't need any kind of creativity. Why am I doing this? If it's not going to use my talent, if there's no growth, then what's
Right.
the point? So I just thought that I might use my skills elsewhere and use it on myself. Why make someone else richer when you can just actually do your own thing and inspire other people to do their own thing as well?
So when you stepped out of that, like you said, during the pandemic is when that changed for you.
Yeah.
How scary was that? Like jumping into working for
Oh,
yourself?
it was so scary, but it's it's a different kind of scary. It's not as scary as staying in the job, but it's a very different kind of scary in that you're going into something that you're oblivious to. Like, you have no idea what's gonna happen. It's completely unknown territory, and you're not even sure. Although you do have kind of an idea that it might work out, because you have a certain support system in the followers or people. It's still very out there. It's not like you are moving from something that's so structured into something that has no structure at all.
Right.
So it's very, very nerve-wracking that way. But then again, it's just weird, but it is worth it at the end of the day.
So just for your information, I worked in corporate for like 9 years, and now recently I just stepped out of it, and I'm
Right.
working for myself, and it's scary. It's scary.
Yeah, it
like-
is. It's definitely scary. Okay, you're not. I don't think there's one person who doesn't find that scary, unless, of course, they are super, super, super well off, or they have like a great financial backing that way. Then they'll be like, oh, you know what? I just thought I could switch in, and it's it's super, super scary. It's yeah.
Just for my benefit, and this is a completely selfish question, do you have any
No.
advice on sourcing freelance clients? Like, I've got a few, but
Yeah.
finding through more people through your network seems to be something that's quite difficult.
Yeah, this is again very unusual of me, given that I am an introvert in a lot of ways, and talking to new people kind of is very anxiety-inducing for me. But then you have to understand, if you believe in what you do, that's where art means so much to me. It's something that's, I think, for me, is outside of myself, because it's a lot greater than who I am, and it's just like this purpose that I'm meant to do. So when I look at it that way, it pushes me out of my comfort zone,
Right.
And so, yeah, I do go out, network, talk to people, and when you form a band of your own people, you kind of help each other out. I know what works for you, so maybe you can try this, different things like that. And there's also websites that I've heard, like for someone like me, Behance, or another few other places. And also when I do gigs, when I have my own pop-ups, you find a lot of people. You have one-on-one, face-to-face conversations with potential clients. That is also possible. So yeah.
Wonderful. So, so you're sort of self-taught. You did not go into design school, and
Nope. Yeah.
What was your education like, if you don't mind me asking?
Well, I'm a triple major in history, economics, and political science, and I have a master's in international studies.
Sounds like Christ University.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm also a Christ alum.
Oh, there you go. Yeah.
The whole triple major, like I did my
Yeah.
triple major computer science, mathematics, statistics.
Oh, and I think the other campuses, or is it the main campus
Main
though?
campus, yes.
Right, right,
Block
right.
2 instead of block 1.
Right, right, right. Of course. Yeah.
So I guess your education has no bearing to what you do now.
No, like, that's exactly what I tell people when, I meet kids who have parents that take their grades too seriously. Trust me, grades do matter, but when you think about things in kind of like a big picture way, it actually doesn't, because you might end up doing something that's so far from what you're educated to do that the grades that you did have during your college education wouldn't even matter. Like the grades that I took in school doesn't even matter anymore. Nobody's going to ask me about grades.
Has
Nobody has
anybody
ever.
ever asked you? Never, right?
No, I mean, only probably when you're submitting your resume for a corporate job, they'll probably take a look at it, but then they also go with, in my experience, what can you do?
Yeah.
It's not what you've done and what your grades are, but also what can you do? And I think that's super important. And it's something that I think our education system is also lacking, because we kind of have this regurgitated information and just like textbook, when you should be doing so much outside of it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like opening this can of worms is not a great conversation for a first time. I don't want to jump into it because then we can obviously rant about everything
Oh
that
yeah,
we.
for sure. It go volumes and volumes talking about it for sure. Yeah.
So instead, I'll switch over to what's your relationship like with money? And the reason I ask this is because for some people it's like the center of their life. It's a very practical concern for some people. For some people, it's a lifestyle thing. For some people, it's like a very spiritual thing. Some people have like.
Yeah.
What's your relationship like with money?
Well, it's definitely a practical thing, and I think for someone, especially a freelancer, it has to be and will be a practical thing, and someone like me who kind of is meandering into having does have her own art shop, and has her own products coming up. It's very much a practical thing, and it's a big deal about how I go about my own business and how I just go about a lot of things, because the money that I make is also an investment into my own work, and then I have to budget it and how much I want to spend it on lifestyle. Lifestyle is like, I think, the least priorities. And when it comes to spending my money, lifestyle is like probably the kind of at the bottom. I wouldn't say it's not a priority. It is like, you want to go out, you want to spend that money, but like that's something that a corporate environment will give to you, where you can just not have to think twice about having your lifestyle and stuff like that. But then ideally, the money would always go for, okay, like how can I use this to better my business or my work and upskill, join different courses or have these different softwares and things like that.
Right.
Yeah.
So if like looking at where you are now and everything that you've gone through, if you could give 3 pieces of advice to your college self, right? What would they be?
Well, first of all, you have to kind of keep self-doubt on a short leash, because a lot about not just this industry, but everything, I think any industry that you go to, you don't have to have self-doubt, because everybody around you will do it for you. Everybody else will doubt you. Okay, so you have to have a strong sense of self and definitely have thick skin. That's number one. And it's easier said than done, but we will get there. Second of all is to cultivate a very good relationship with how you perceive money. As in, I understand that it's really hard to not think of it from a scarcity mindset if you've had certain experiences in your life, but then just it's all right. Just, you get your savings right, get your budgeting right, make your money management should be a high priority, if you really want to scale your business or like get into following your passion, that is,
Right.
you know. And third is just give people a chance in terms of, if you're someone like me who's a bit more introverted and is socially anxious, not everybody out there is going to get you. Not everybody out there is mean-spirited or is catty. There are good people out there, and they do wish and have the best intentions towards you, and give them a chance. And do the same thing for other people. Let it not be one-sided. There has to be equal give and take.
All right, that's beautiful.
Yeah.
So
Thank you.
if I could summarize, you said, be like money management should be, that was the second thing. Money management should be your top priority. Your first thing was, why am I forgetting?
Self-doubt.
Self-doubt. There is no capacity. There's no like, keep a short leash for self-doubt.
Yeah.
Second thing was money management. Third thing was, why am I forgetting? Like, I'm like zoning out so badly. Like, even though I was listening to you with rapt attention, the third thing was like, if you're a social introvert, people might not get you. And
no, it's not that way. It's just that if you're someone who's socially awkward, this is just very for specific kind of people, because I can only speak from my own experiences, and I think extroverts have it sorted. Not that they don't have their bad days, but it's just that give people a chance. Not everybody out there is going to get you, or not everybody is mean-spirited.
But some people are nice.
Yeah, people are nice, and I know that for a fact because I know such people in my life from the same industry, and I say that because in an industry that's so dysregulated, we have to have each other's backs.
Yeah.
And that's the only way anyone can succeed, is to have each other's backs, and that's super important.
Wonderful. So we'll conclude the formal portion of this interview with the last question. If you could speak directly to the audience, what would you like to say to them? Now, this is where you can advertise your own services. You can send them to your Behance profile or somewhere else. Or if you don't want to do that, you can share a movie that you recently watched, a book that you recently read, or a quote that has stuck with you for a long time.
Oh God. Okay, so there's this quote that I kind of stand by. It's super, super cliched, okay? So forgive me for that. But it's about how art is supposed to discomfort the comfortable and comfort the discomforted. And it's something that I really stand by. And it's sort of evident with what I do as well, because there's very extreme opinions to what I do and my own artwork, in that there are people that are too conventional in their thinking that find it super uncomfortable, and there are other people who find it, who have rave reviews to it. So at the end of the day, I think it all comes down to authenticity. No matter what you do, you could be a computer engineer for all I care, is to focus on authenticity, because that shows and that'll eventually make you stand out. Yeah.
Amazing, Neha. That was our formal interview completed, and it only took us 18 minutes. So
that's great.
Now, just to talk to you a little bit more, you were recommended to me by Kupa, who is a common friend of ours.
Who's an amazing, amazing illustrator in her own right.
Yeah,
Brilliant artist.
I have her stickers on my notebook.
Yes, of course. Brilliant artist, of course.
So the way I source guests on the show is I usually ask my guests, who are people you admire? Now, I met her at a pop-up that I went to. So I was able to ask her, but then I've never met you. Right. So what do you think Kupa admires about you that she recommended you?
Honestly, I don't know, but I do know that we're similar in a lot of ways in how we perceive the world. Again, she's very much like, how have each other's backs kind of a person. And she's very selfless that way. And I think she's an incredible human being. Because also there's not much of those kind of people, And it's just, I don't. I mean, I could talk about Krupa for like hours and not stop because of how in absolute awe I am of her and her work, but also like her as a person, you know.
Tell
And
me something
I
about it.
well, I just said, in the fact that she's super selfless. I think also her creative attributes in the way that, I mean, she's a creative genius in her own right. I mean, if you seen any work of her, it's super evident. And there's a certain amount of rawness, there's this unabashed rawness in her artwork, which I love. And I hope that, is only amplified in a lot of her future works, and I hope she doesn't lose it, or I hope that the world doesn't make her lose it,
Right.
more yeah. So yeah, it's just very, very refreshing energy for sure. And I think and I hope the reason that she recommended me is because she sees a lot of that in me as well. I mean, that would be like an honor if she does, but yeah, I'm not quite sure, but I'm guessing that might be a thing.
What do you think is that those traits that you mentioned that refresh other people? Like,
Yeah.
I found that such a unique way to present. Nobody ever calls anybody else refreshing, right?
Yeah.
So
Because there's not many refreshing people around. We live in a society, and hey, listen, I say it like it is, all right?
Yeah.
There's a reason why influencers and your Kardashians and people like that are so famous. And that's because we live in a society, in a culture that applauds mediocrity than actual raw talent. And if actual raw talent has to be applauded, it has to fit into the ambit of mediocrity in a certain way, which
Right.
sucks, And yeah, I'm drawn to people who stand out like that, who don't give in to the system, who are like, fuck the status quo. I mean, sorry for cursing, but it is what it is,
You can curse on the spot.
yeah.
On this, I'll go for it.
Yeah, and I see a lot of that in her, which is why, there's people like her, when I meet people like her, I'm like, I hope that the world doesn't take that away from you, because we need more of this.
Yeah.
This is so inspiring. Whether you see it or not is like of no consequence, but it is super, super necessary. And what you do is important, and you are important. And I hope you come to realize that. And I hope a lot of people come to realize that.
Wonderful. I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, she does, like, the one time I met her was, like you said, so refreshing in the sense of, like, she is so free in the way
Exactly.
she talks and presents herself and everything, and it was like super inspiring to be with her at that pop-up and everything.
I know, right? Like, it's such an amazing energy to be around.
Well, I'm sure I'll send her this podcast, and when she listens to it and she
Oh God, I hope it isn't like super cringe that we're so fangirly over her, and she's like, "This is so weird."
I'm right there with you. We're fangirling over her together.
I know, right? Like a huge a fandom that she's got now. Like probably start like an Instagram page for her, and just like two people and like several others who definitely join in for sure.
So, I don't want to stretch on the show any longer. Like, this is a great first conversation. I wish I can have both of you together at some point on the show.
Sure, for sure. Yeah, that'd be great.
Yeah. So I'm just gonna stop recording here, and then we'll talk a little bit more after this.
Sure.